Hey everyone, welcome back to Business in the Bull podcast. I'm your host, Emerisiwara, and today we're sitting down with Miss Jeannine Sato, who's the owner of City Box Durham. And today we are going to be interviewing her and asking her all about her business, how she runs it, her networking, and all of that stuff. So if you're interested, make sure you grab a snack and get comfortable, and let's get straight into this week's episode. All right, so today I'm here with Miss Jeannine Sato, who is the owner and founder of City Box Durham. So, Miss Jeannine, can you go ahead and give us a quick little rundown of your business and what you sell?
Yeah, absolutely. So City Box Durham is a curated gift box company, and it includes all Durham and locally made products. So I work with local vendors who are making their own cool stuff like candles, soaps, face products, food items. Um, and then I assemble them, curate them, put them in different size boxes, and do free shipping and a very nice, pretty box, great for the unboxing experience.
Mhm.
And just make it really convenient for people to buy local so they don't have to run all over town and buy stuff and assemble it themselves. So everything's kind of prepackaged and ready for them to go. And so it makes it really easy to buy local and support local businesses.
All right, that sounds amazing. Thank you so much. And I think you already started delving into this topic, kinda. And I know your business was launched in 2022, which is pretty recent.
Mhm.
But can you tell me like the story behind your business and what you inspired you to start it?
Yeah, well, I think I've just always had a bit of an entrepreneurial spirit and I've had a million ideas, but I've been busy having like a day job and with paying the bills and having health insurance and all that stuff. So I was always a little scared to just go out on my own. But I guess I just finally realized like I wanted to foster that creativity. I wanted to do something local. I wanted to do something that was going to support other entrepreneurs and sort of I like partnering with people and I just really love meeting and I really love the vendors, like meeting and hearing their stories. So I really wanted to try to find a way that I could help promote them and they could help promote me. So it's a sort of reciprocal relationship.
Mhm.
But on the practical level, in my job, I was a communications director at Duke and other places, but I often was in a position to have to buy local gifts and we would give them to VIPs or board members or, special guests. And I'd be like running all over town and it was expensive and time consuming. And I thought, there just has to be someone who does this, right? And there really wasn't. So I was like, well, I guess I'm gonna have to do it. So that's kind of how it started. And the first people I told was my coworkers, and they're like, yes, like we've been looking for that. So I knew that there was a market there, and I just kind of started slow and started building it up.
That's amazing. And I like how you found something that hadn't had a market. Like I heard you talking and you were like, oh, like I was looking for someone who did something like this. And there was really no one who did. So the fact that you took initiative to do something like this speaks a lot about you and your character and your entrepreneurial spirit, which is something I definitely admire about you.
Thank
And
you.
so, in starting your business, what were some of the initial steps that you took in order to get this business off the ground?
Well, the first thing I realized is that I had never done this before and I really didn't know a ton. So obviously I'm doing my internet research, but I thankfully Durham has a really great entrepreneurship and business ecosystem for startups. And I'm so grateful for that because honestly, I really feel like I was clueless. The first thing I did was get connected with the SBA, the Small Business Administration office in downtown Durham, and they have a ton of free resources online
Mhm.
and in person. So you can actually have a free mentor. From there, I was connected to Echo, which is an entrepreneurship support group, nonprofit in Durham that I still work with today. I also became a member of E3, which was another one that was a collaboration through Provident 1896. You're going to have to check the number on that. And a couple of other groups.
Mhm.
It was great. So that really introduced me to other entrepreneurs and also just gave me some really practical advice about like how to like set up my tax ID, how to like set up my assumed name, how to set up a bank account for my business. Some of those like really practical things that you have to do to get your ducks in a row before you launch. So I spent the first really like 6 months doing all of that, like kind of getting the name situated and the tax ID and trying to get my systems in place And the whole time I was also curating, talking to local vendors because I didn't even know, honestly, they might be like, I'm not selling to you. Like I knew that the model would only work if they were willing to sell wholesale to me so that I could
Yeah.
sell retail and make a profit.
Mhm.
Um, and then be able to put that money into the boxing and the shipping and all that other stuff and still a
Mhm.
little bit left over to make a profit. And so talking to the vendors was another one of the first steps and it was great because most of them were very receptive and eager to work with me and just really, wanted to get their stuff out there too. So
Mhm.
just started building relationships with those vendors. It was great.
And that's amazing. I love how you've been able to build relationships. And this kind of leads me into my next question as well. How has networking and being able to meet and talk with other people played like a larger role in your impact and also a larger role in your life, like not just your business, but also your personal life?
Yeah, I mean, I still have my day job, but man, if I could do this all the time, like one of the things I love the most is just visiting with the vendors. And many of them started out themselves quite small and now have brick and mortar shops.
Mhm.
So quite a few that were working in co-working spaces now have their own shops. And so it's just really cool to go by there and see how they're doing and try to promote their products and their business as much as possible. I try to strive to work with at least 75% of women and minority-owned businesses in Durham. So whenever possible,
Mhm.
those ones that are just starting out, I have some bigger ones too, and that's great because they have good name recognition.
Mhm.
But having them paired with the smaller team groups are actually it's really good for everybody,
Mhm.
right? So bright black
Yeah.
candles, like blown up, they're great. They're huge. They're selling to Beyonce and Crate and Barrel, and they were one of my first vendors. And they've started a brick and mortar shop now in Lakewood Plaza. And I buy their Durham candle exclusively for City Box Durham because it's such a great candle.
Yeah.
But to be able to tag them in social media, but then also have East Durham Sweet Shop, who's a lot smaller and has her own brick and mortar now too, but has been selling for years online and at different events, that creating those relationships, sort of being the intermediary is kind of fun. So we all kind of support each other, which is really cool. And I just enjoy seeing their progress. And they've been such a supportive group of me too. So I mean, it's just like happy land. It's great.
Yeah. That sounds amazing. And I really like the whole idea of networking. That's something that even I try to do. Like this whole business model is kind of similar to me and familiar with me because I know that one thing that I've tried to do in the past is something kind of like this, but a little bit different. So I know the like sometimes like what it takes to go to find like different vendors and go through the whole process and the fact that you've been able to foster like good relationships and friendships and have great experiences and be able to promote not only big but small businesses to help get your brand out there is something that I really admire once again. I know that City Box Durham is a little young as well. As I said earlier, it was started in 2022. But what are some of your most significant milestones, memorable experiences, or turning points in your business history that have shaped its trajectory?
Oh, wow. Yeah, a couple of milestones stick out. Well, I had a launch at Durham Bottling Company in October of 2022. So
Mhm.
that was really when that first leap of when you're sort of even saying I'm an entrepreneur is scary because you're really putting yourself out there at that point. That's a huge milestone. And I
Mhm.
remember being pretty terrified, like, okay, I'm saying I'm doing this, I'm putting this out there. Now I really have to do it. There's no backing out now. So that was a big hurdle of just me being public, saying this is a thing and I'm steering the bus. And if it goes bust, it's my fault. That's cool, but it's risky.
Yeah.
Um, and that's very empowering too, because when you do that, you're like, yes, okay, I did that. Now I got to get to the next thing. Of
Mhm.
course, my first sale online was great, but I think a bigger milestone was when I realized that there are some groups and organizations that actually really like this for corporate gifting. So
Mhm.
that, to be able to, for a business or a new apartment complex or something like that,
Mhm.
is loves Durham so much that they're willing to invest in the local community and purchase products that supports me plus all of the vendors. That's when I felt like, oh, wow, this is great. Maybe there's really something here. So that was a big milestone to realize, okay, individuals like it, but also there's a bigger market that hopefully from a
Yeah.
business standpoint makes it a little more sustainable. And that was like an aha moment for me.
And I really like that because just as you said earlier, when you were trying to just like get your foot out the door and say that it was public and say, okay, like I'm doing this, so I have to do it now. Even the same thing with this podcast for me. I remember winning like a scholarship, and I remember I was looking back through like the things that I wrote and answered for the scholarship, and I remember putting this on there, and I was like, okay, like, I'm saying I'm gonna do it. So like now I gotta take the steps and I actually have to do it. And that can be really difficult, but once you actually do it, it feels so good. So I definitely relate to that and loved hearing your stories. And now, can you share any lessons you've learned from failure or setbacks along the way in this journey?
Oh my God. The whole thing has been an exercise in small failures and constant tweaking and adjustments. And I feel like it's a bit of an emotional roller coaster. And sometimes I really have to look at the long view and be like, okay, yeah, I haven't made a ton of sales this month and it's a little slow and my cash flow is getting low and I don't really know,
Mhm.
there's a lot of juggling and logistics and business stuff that, you just kind of learn along the way.
Mhm.
Um, I guess the lesson is like, right, try to keep the long view, like try to zoom out the lens when you're having those ups and downs. It's like you're looking for an upward trajectory over time. It's not going to happen overnight. So you really are going to have like lots of little ups and downs
Mhm.
throughout, and that's normal. And it's even okay to like feel kind of like down about it a few days,
Yes.
and be like, I'm like, this, why am I doing this? Like, what is happening?
Mhm.
But then to be like, okay, I'm going to regather my energy. I'm going to take a little break from it, then I'll come back to it. And I feel like that's pretty normal as an entrepreneur. And just that, like, when we were talking about being public about like what you're doing
Mhm.
those first few times, like I think like most people and probably women in particular, like having that imposter syndrome of like, well, who am I to be doing
Yes.
this? You know what I'm saying? Like, why am I doing this? Like, why isn't anyone, well, who cares? Why not me? Like, so I have to give myself pep talks.
Mhm.
I did have early on, one of my first vendors is someone I just knew from around town, and I knew she was an artist and trying to she had a side business. Now she's doing it full time. So she's been building it up for years.
Mhm.
And I met with her first and still carry some of her products, which are great. It's Bright Kind Creative, and you should look them up because she's really is happy, great products.
I will.
But one of the things she said, she knew she's like, you're a hard worker. Like you've achieved a lot. She had to tell me, remind me, like you've achieved a lot
Mhm.
already in your life and you can do this. And you have to work as hard for yourself as you have for everyone else. And that's my mantra now, like, okay, it's okay for me to work as hard for myself as I have for everyone else
Mhm.
and to put some of that energy into my endeavors. And that helped me a lot. And I just still try to keep that in mind. Yeah. And I've had many vendors just like pull me aside and be like, I can tell you're having a hard time. Like they give you a little pep talk, and I've done the same for them. Like you need to charge more for that. Your labor's like it matters, So we try to help each other. It's
Mhm.
great.
Thank you so much for those little words of encouragement and nuggets. And some of those things I'll definitely be keeping to myself. Like that advice really spoke to me, and I'll be definitely using that in the future. I think we both know from past experiences that running a business is very challenging. It's not an easy task to do. But even though it may be a little bit difficult, what have been some of the most rewarding aspects of owning your own business?
Yeah, I guess it made me feel very accomplished. Like, and it was something that I don't mean to sound this selfish, but because I have worked for people my whole life, like
Mhm.
to have something that was just mine that I felt like, okay, I created this, I named it, I designed the box, I hired the people that I wanted, I picked the items that went in it. It's not as creative as being an artist, but that's okay. Like I feel great about like this was my creative outlet. It was my way to connect with my community, to
Mhm.
feel like I'm supporting my community and hopefully making some money, too. That's kind of the goal of a for-profit business. It's not a nonprofit, and I'm okay
Yeah.
with that. But yeah, I feel accomplished. And I said even at my like when I had my launch day, I said, well, I'm going to keep going as far as I can with this, but I feel like I've already accomplished just because I'm here talking to you saying that I'm a business owner. Like
Mhm.
no one can take that away from me now. Like I am a business owner. I was a business owner and I did it completely on my own and my own resourcefulness. And, that makes you feel very accomplished. And they always say a lot of business owners try multiple things before something sticks, right? And so I've had a lot of half-baked ideas before this, and this is the first one where I was like, I'm really just going to go for it and put it out there in the world and see what happens. So, yeah, it's cool.
Yeah, I admire your accomplishments and the way that you talk about your business and the way that you carry yourself about your business. I think it's very admirable. And I like how you feel about your accomplishments. And I'm proud of your accomplishments. And I'm definitely going to be recommending City Box Durham to as many people as possible because I'm very proud of this. And I love the idea because, like I said earlier, like I've had a similar idea to something like this too. So to see someone execute something like this and make it very Durham related is so cool to me, and it's something that I'm going to continue to support for like as long as it's existing. And I'm so happy I know about it now because I truly am going to share it with as many people as I
Hey, well, I am impressed by your podcast because you're way ahead of the
can.
game. And I think thinking about entrepreneurship at an early stage, I
Mhm,
wish that I had done that when I was in high school. I mean, it's now it just seems a little more norm that you have these resources, but
mhm,
good for you. You're just going to be able to write your own ticket basically. And you can start businesses and you can work for someone else and you could do both
mhm,
and you could probably do it at the same time. It's just like the sky's the limit. It's really cool once you have that
mhm.
ability.
Yeah, and I like that about you as well. Like even though you're still working, like you still own your own business. Like I can't imagine how difficult that is to do. Like well, I can't imagine it because I'm in school and I'm in high
Well,
school.
you're
But
doing it too. That's your job, and you're doing this,
mm,
so it's the same thing. You're just juggling.
yeah.
Hustlers. We always say we're just hustlers, all these small business people, you know.
All right. Um. Okay. So, can you discuss any future plans or goals that you have about your business for the future?
Yeah, I tried to go into it actually with a really big picture. Like I think big. I like
Mhm,
think long and big, and I'm like, I'll just figure it out in between. My goal, and I don't know if this will really come to fruition, but when I had the idea, I thought, well, this is a franchisable idea, in my opinion.
mhm,
There's City Box Durham. I know my community and I can have those relationships, but someone in Winston-Salem or someone in Wilmington or even Ohio or California, they
mhm,
know their community and they have their relationships. And people want to buy and I think support local businesses and build that local ecosystem. So I think there's a City Box, Columbus, Ohio
mhm,
somewhere possibly, and maybe there's a person there like me who wants to do something like that and needs a framework for it. So
mhm,
I'm looking at this as a bit of a beta test, me in Durham, maybe some other local group, there could be some other local municipalities with partnerships in, Raleigh or Chapel Hill.
mhm.
But my goal is hopefully someday to have, sell the business to other people in other states and let them build their own ecosystem and help provide local products to the people in their community.
And I like how you mentioned how you're going to I like you mentioned you're gonna like sell it to other people because just like you know your community because you're from Durham, you may not know like Columbus, Ohio as well because you're
Yeah,
not
I
from
wouldn't.
there.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, so being able to like sell that idea to other people and like provide the framework and like the mentorship to be able to help them start that and establish that there and eventually spread it all over the country. I think that'd be a great idea. And I can just like you've seen the market for here in Durham, I can definitely see the market for it across the entire United States. So I think that is really cool.
Thank you. Well, I think it's fun and I enjoy doing it and I'm just
Mhm.
going to keep going. And I think that's the sort of like secret sauce someone told me is just like keep being consistent and keep going.
Mhm.
And eventually it'll work out, give
Yeah,
up.
everything always works out in the end. So I agree with that secret sauce method.
Yeah.
And so my last question for you today, as we bring this interview to a close, is what advice would you give to aspiring entrepreneurs looking to establish themselves in Durham?
I would say find the entrepreneurial community that fits, your needs.
Mhm,
Whether you're a student or you're a second career person or you just moved here. I've met people from literally all walks of life with all kinds of ideas. And that early community of mostly it's the encouragement, right? But there's
mhm,
also tons of networking and connections, like you mentioned. Oh, you need an accountant. Oh, I know someone over here. Or, oh, we're applying for this grant and you can talk to these folks from the city. So there's all kinds of opportunities and just getting out there and knowing people. Plus, you just never know who your next customer is going to be, right?
Mhm.
So I think in those early days, that really, really helped me feel very plugged in and supported. Now I know a little bit more and I'm being a little more like I'm curating my own time. At
Mhm.
first, I was going to everything all the time. Now I'm being a little more thoughtful. Like, what do I really need support on? Okay, finance stuff. I'm going to try to look for some training, or I'm going to work with someone who's very specialized in marketing. Because the problems are different, right? Like I solve one problem and then there's another one. You got it. So if you like troubleshooting and problem solving, entrepreneurship's for you because
Mhm.
that's really all it is. It's kind of like figuring things out. But I think just you can't do it alone. You really do have to rely on people and know when to ask for help and know when to hire help when you can afford it.
Yeah.
And that's been a little hard for me because I think entrepreneurs in general are very autonomous and they're DIYers, like, and
Yeah.
you want to do everything, but in the end, you have to prioritize. And so that's been like a learning experience for me of like how to prioritize my limited time to get the biggest bang for the buck to make the business work.
Thank you so much, Jeannine, for being on here today. We really appreciate having you and all the inspiration and advice you've been able to give to entrepreneurs and even future entrepreneurs in Durham is really inspiring, and we appreciate all your words. So thank you so much for being here.
Thanks, Amaris. I appreciate being on there and best wishes to you and all the other entrepreneurs out there. I think we're all entrepreneurs deep down inside.
Yes. All right. Thank you so much.
Take care.
All right. You
Bye.
too. Bye. All right. Thank you so much for watching this week's episode of Business in the Bull podcast. We hope you enjoyed it. Make sure you keep up with us on Spotify and follow our Instagram to stay updated with us. And we hope to see you in next week's episode. Bye.